Hi, I'm January. I was a news director, worked in public radio, also spent my life trying to get organizations who don't like technology to adopt technology. And that's why I still have faith that journalists will someday. And that's what brought us to this session. So I joined the Web3 community naively through working with ETH Denver a few years ago. I got full immersion. It really kind of rang my bells in the way that sovereignty, information. I came up in community media, training people to own their own stories, get on the air and be the media and own your own story. And so those kind of same principles really got me excited about this space. And I'm glad I came in through the Ethereum space because in my crypto education in the last couple of years, I went to a bunch of other conferences. I went to Bitcoin, I went to Consensus, ETHCC, and not everybody's like that. Not everybody's like Ethereum. ETH Denver was definitely a nice little kind nexus to kind of learn the ecosystem and what's out there. And so I went out and explored, but I have found that I just really believe there are tools here for journalists and no one's bringing those to the surface. So I invited my friend, Brad. Brad, tell him who you are. Also journalist.
Well, yeah, my name's Brad Keoun, and I do have an electrical engineering degree, but proceeded to be a journalist for about 3 decades. I did community journalism with the Gainesville Sun in Florida and the Chicago Tribune, and then I was with Bloomberg News for 15 years in New York and Mexico City, and I was literally on the front lines of covering the 2008 financial crisis. I led a big investigative project into secret emergency loans by the Federal Reserve to all the biggest banks. And it was like a groundbreaking historic FOIA that we did of the Fed. And we ended up winning at the Supreme Court level that case. We got the data and did a big investigation. And then
Then you threw your life away and got interested in crypto.
And then I was with The Street for 4 years as their chief global finance and economics correspondent. And then I was just seeing that none of this is sustainable in terms of the global financial system. And I had a friend who got me interested in crypto as a topic. And then I got a job with CoinDesk, and I was with CoinDesk for 5 years. I was the managing editor of markets for 3 years, and then I was the managing editor of Tech and Protocols for 2 years. And I had a column called The Protocol, just writing about blockchain protocols and going through all of the docs for all these projects and just kind of looking at the state of crypto media and just kind of the state of media in general, and sort of recognizing that this is all Web 2. Here we are, crypto media, and we're not eating any of our own cooking, and we're not, even exploring any of the possibilities of what blockchain infrastructure might do. And the business model of media was just melting down, and people don't trust media. And then here comes AI eating all the page views. So again, just unsustainable. And I quit my job and started a company. It's called Distro Media.
Quit your job and start a company.
Initially it was going to be a Web3 media protocol, but then I fell down the AI rabbit hole. So now it's sort of like an AI native news protocol. But I mean, the problems are not going away, which is like, what's the funding model for media, and also operational resilience. Iran, they had a blackout. I mean, how do you get the news out if you don't have a grid to, if you can't get it out? And then, anti-censorship was just becoming kind of a real problem that's widely, documented across all sorts of instances over the past couple of years. So anyway, that's why I'm here.
I roped him in. We were already going to ETH Denver. I've met Brad, and since I joined the space, I've been trying to find what's important to me in this space. The thing that stands out the most is protecting people's freedom of speech, having community around it. And I think we see right now with what's going on with the ICE movements, we're seeing community journalism in a way we didn't see before, right? We're crowdsourcing all these videos. This is what's verifying, like, murder or not, right? So how do we trust that information? What are these things that protect the press? Because that trickles down to protecting citizen journalism who feeds the press, right? Because we still need some kind of legitimacy layer on things. Yeah, so we're going to talk about that. We are not going to talk very long. I swear I'm quick, 5 minutes, and then we're just going to go into a discussion because luckily enough, someone after us canceled, so we have 60 minutes. I'm like, yes, I'll take that time. So I will run through this quickly. I have a summary diagram at the end, but the idea is I'm just going to lay out, here's the problems we face in journalism right now, and here's kind of what we see out there, and then break it into 5 areas about what could we do to build. So maybe it's dApps and Ethereum that plug into any publishing platform like yours, distro, right? Maybe it's something that identifies like is identity verification or even just hashing your story, you know? And so we'll just kind of break out and get those ideas because I don't know. I think there's a lot of knowledge that hasn't been applied to this field, applied to this industry. Nobody is thinking about this as a problem. And so that's what I'm hoping to convene with this conversation. You approve?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. So Brad and I are both haggard journalists from Indiana. We've been in the field. We had to go out in public early in the morning, talk to people, be in the media. And that is a very different kind of way to live as a journalist, right? Versus your cushy job at CoinDesk, right? Armchair, crypto journalist, academic. But what we're seeing now is journalism is for everyone, right? Annoying as TikTok is, everyone thinks they're a reporter now. And that is a very good thing because we check each other though. You know what I mean? So we have a crowdsource of knowledge that legitimize things that then is further legitimized by the fourth estate, which is journalism, that's supposed to be the voice of the people and check government. And so the mission, here we are. This is the bridge we're trying to put together, right? And so we're just trying to get this going because the thing is that, you know, we have an industry crisis. We have a funding crisis, lack of, in crypto journalism, they're funded by the actual crypto industry. Problem, right? Regular journalism, cutting left and right. Washington Post is gone, but owned by Bezos. Like, where are we going? Who do we trust right now, right? And that's why I want to come back to like the core source of the community, which is like we develop our own tools, so we own our own information and we create trust. Trust is what is missing from journalism right now. What can we do with this technology, not in an abstract way, but actually in your daily life that matters to people? How do we create trust in this ecosystem of journalism using Ethereum, right? Come on. Yeah. All right. I am going to be quick. So we have these problems. Brad laid some of them out, you know, based on his career, but we have platform dependency, the AI crisis, impersonation, censorship, of course. Anybody can take your things down, and operational risks too, because of course it's dangerous to be a journalist. It's dangerous to do these things. And other places in the world saw this, and the United States, we're getting a real taste of it right now, where we thought we were kind of immune or more safe. We're not anymore. And so that's why this is a conversation that needs to happen now. And so why is no one building for journalism? Wah, wah, wah. Well, I will say as a journalist, we're a bit of a bummer kind of people. We're overworked. We complain a lot. Don't tell me any new technology. I have too much in my head already. Please no. You know what I mean? I've always been a technology adopter because I think it helps. But you have to be that person in your org who says, I have a workflow. Don't think about it. Put it in Dropbox. I'll take care of it. Right? Keith, he knows. He's my guy on this. But yeah, we've also just had such a negative downturn, political toxicity around journalism. We're being calling fake news, right? Like Trump just started that narrative as soon as he got into office to delegitimize any reputable news organization. And that catches, it's catching, you know what I mean? And people are like, oh yeah, I don't trust anybody anymore. Well, yeah, me too. But maybe we could build some trust again. And also it's distractive, right? So I felt like 2019 was such a good year for technology, and we're on the verge of maybe doing some cool stuff in journalism and information with blockchain and crypto. And then NFTs, COVID, we lost the narrative. We lost momentum. We lost interest. Then Bitcoin got fun again, and we also lost the narrative, had no attention to build in this space. Well, Bitcoin's not even 70. Let's pay a little attention now to what we can build. And of course, funding crisis. We don't have a funding model in journalism. Fact,
It's looking pretty bleak.
we ask for subscriptions. We ask you for paywalls, right? They do events. You get sponsored content. I don't know if it's going to get any better. Obviously, we don't have any public funds going to public media anymore, not to public radio, not to public television. So we rely on the private sector to fund us and make sure they don't intervene in truth. Okay. And then, like I said, friction. It's very hard for journalists to adopt new technology. But what I am hopeful about just in the last 2 years that I've seen in Web3 and blockchain is we can describe the use now. We don't need to tell you how it works. We're over ourselves now, right? We know that works. We don't have to over-explain the technology to get an easy use case. So that's why we're in a sweet spot. I swear, 2 more minutes. And so, yeah, why build now? Just what I said. The AI urgency, impersonation, platform instability, also the lawsuits. How do you do your licensing when people are training on your content as a news organization or as an independent journalist? And there's now economic viability. If you wanted to hash a story in the blockchain 2 years ago, it would have been $200 a story. You're not going to do that. I think it's like 50 cents now. Kind of amazing. And so what do journalists actually need? We need infrastructure, decentralized, permanent, censorship-resistant storage and hosting. We need identity, verified human authorship and identity attestations. We need provenance, content registration, and timestamping for absolute proof of publication. The economics, too. We need licensing and monetization. If I'm a freelancer, I want someone to be able to license my story with a smart contract under these terms. I get my kick. You know it's mine. You use it as is. I'm out of the business model because journalists and artists aren't business people, as we've learned. You said journalists were artists today, and I was like, problem.
My comment was journalists are like artists in the sense that we just expect somebody to give us money to do what we're going to do.
Right. Business model, rad. Safety, of course. Like we have such a safety issue right now. And, I'm not a deep state conspiracy theorist, but I do see in my local protest Reddit stream, everybody's faces. Once you're there, you're also in Homeland Security's database. What are we doing to protect our own privacy, right? Whether you're a citizen journalist or you're a citizen, sharing information, there's tools here that can protect us. At least you know what you've exposed yourself to, right? That's at the least that we can do for that in some cases. So the dream, publish however you want, but have these ways to plug in to these things that we uniquely know in this small little ecosystem of blockchain devs that can really back it up. Yeah, kind of the same thing. Archiving, metadata, and then how are we publishing? How are we protecting things? And so this is where everybody talks. So how I kind of broke this down in my mind, I was thinking of these kind of tracks, right? So we have the area of decentralized publishing and archiving, identity and authorship as another. The third is content registration and timestamping. The fourth is licensing, monetization, and infrastructure. And the other one is source protection and anonymous submissions. And so what I would really love is to facilitate some conversations in smaller groups, or if this group here says, let's take on one of these tracks and just have some brainstorming. Because, everything I learned about this, Perplexity told me, was it right? So that's it. That's how I'm just setting it up. Yeah, and then I have a overall graphic for reference here to kind of give the whole talk context about what we're talking about. I don't know. I mean, so the idea is like there's the back end and then whatever your publishing platform is and the reach from your publishing platform, whether it's traditional Web 2, right? But there's a discovery issue, like we see on Blue Sky, right? Like nobody's there. You have to ask people to be there. But I'm not saying we should all split. I'm just saying put the back end on this. So distro that's out, it's a Web 2 publishing site. People will still find it, but I'm just talking about putting the back end on it.
Are you thinking in terms of finding a specific story that you're looking for or finding publications to follow or?
Intermediating different types of blockers to new business models. You have an advertising driven attention economy that if you want to arrive in recommendations how you're able to socialize content and achieve distribution, you can socialize these things to, like leveraging social graphs, knowledge graphs, trust graphs, and you can transfer across those topics to find the surface things that people might be interested in ways that are not advertising driven, but can still generate advertising like revenue.
Wait, is this a revenue model for journalism?
Well, I think it's clear that we're moving beyond sort of the Google SEO driven model to something new, right? I think it's fascinating. Yeah.
I think it's an important topic to talk about.
Yeah.
On out of this stuff, that's what I'd like to most talk about, and I'm wondering which group you break that into, or if it's a different category of its own.
That might be a different thing. I think for like the time we have on our hands, just focusing on, does that make sense? Can people do this? Like, can you build that stuff?
Over here, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm suggesting that,
Yeah.
I think that's where
okay.
Some type of like feedback loop of like, how social media just monetizes views, for example. You got to figure out some type of structure like that, to like incentivize people to actually like speak up about things that they're seeing, that kind of thing.
There's a definite, I'm also plugged into something called the Online News Association, which is kind of like the technologists in mainstream media. But there's a big trend called creator journalism, which is kind of like the Substackization of journalism, where going from the old model where you got a job for this news organization and they told you, okay, here's your beat, and they give you a desk and a computer and go write some stories. And the model's now moving toward, very much influenced by social media and influencer economy of, okay, I'm passionate about this topic. I'm an expert on this topic. So I'm going to start my own newsletter, and it's going to be kind of some kind of marketing funnel where it's, you're getting people in and then pushing people down, and somehow you're going to monetize. Yeah. But that's a trend that a lot of people are talking about.
It is, but the thing is that we don't have to leave the media sphere to have blockchain backing up our identity or our stories, right? I'm not talking about leaving. We want to stay. But the front end, the publishing part, can be anything. It could maybe be on your Substack, but I don't know how Ethereum and things work, so that's why I came to you guys. But I kind of feel like it's solvable.
You had a question.
If anyone cared, yeah.
I'd say that like most of the things that on your first slide, like flat out, yes, are solvable. Like you have caveats. The fact that the information is public. So what do you do as far as revenue collection when people can just read it, right? So there's caveats and there's design considerations. But yes, it's possible to, like right now today, Announce Builder, for example, you go on and submit a proposal to one of those DAOs. That textual information is on chain. That article, that could be a news article, right? The voting process that is currently used to authorize proposals could be used to provide legitimacy for the contribution. But I think the question that most people are worried about or trying to help ideate on is how do we replace the advertiser's dollar, right? Because that's what really comes. You can't just rely on my good faith that I'm going to contribute consistently to content, and you can't trust my judgment either. But I wonder if there's a way to take the way that you look at preference. Right now, we look at a user's preference from the perspective of the advertiser. What does this user prefer, so that I can match that user up with the advertiser? And I wonder if there's something to be said about changing that. So look at the user's perspective first, and then gate the advertiser's ability to get in front of that user based on the type of content the advertiser is willing to support.
Yeah. I think this is what the journalism model has relied on, right? Traditionally. I don't think we can solve the problem of funding journalism. We have to rely on the benevolence of some funders and also subscribers, right? It's a subscriber model, it's a community model when it comes down to journalism in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, I think that the revenue issue, paying individual journalists for what they produce, and then the larger model of how do you keep great orgs like Unchained, right? Or the Defiant, like kind of some of the best organizations in crypto news. Maybe you agree, but they're two of my favorites as far as keeping independence and telling you really what's going on, right? We rely on our readers. And so that's been the oldest kind of relationship with it. What I want to do, and which is like part of the journalism bootstrapper, is like, we never have any money. So can somebody build something for me in Drupal? Like, that was my first websites in the 90s. Like, yeah, make me a Drupal module, right? And so journalism, we're builders too, in that same way. So yeah, just kind of keeping that idea out there, where it's revenue, building, protection of sources, what is still out there. And can we just have a little bit of attention on it,
Which, say, make a comparison, the same happens with scientific publishing, monopoly of like universities versus funding themselves. And so the incentives are wrong. It doesn't look like in a Web3 era, where it's like, for example, it cannot be just an American thing. It needs to be like a worldwide thing. Like, what's the guild of journalism? Is like, what's the manifesto that cohort of people has to offer to others? Because it's a two-way street where if there's a signal being shown to people who want to share the truth and like participate in this exercise of sense making, then you can, the solutions are going to appear. But like, what are the things that need to change from, say, like the previous installment of these institutions, which are corporate owned, which are like geolocated, and how does the institution of science, the institution of journalism, the institution of healthcare look in the Web3 era?
Right. Borderless, no country, same values. Yes, I think like that is a good question. And I think journalists do feel a little universality whenever we meet because the struggle, right? But yes, there is not like a larger consensus or people questioning that because we have a crisis in journalism. No one's thinking about it. No one's trying to help. People have kind of written it off as a lost cause. And I'm like, it's not. It's not.
Well,
wait, let's let other people talk. Because we don't have that much more time. And we have like 20 more minutes. So, well, the government just did that. They defunded PBS and public radio. So they decided we don't exist.
Of truth science. So what you can do is you can basically follow, you can defer to people on topics through you to you to you to you to you. The people, serious people doing serious science, decentralized science is one of the best use cases for this stuff, where you can say like, I am trusting people who are doing serious science and not necessarily arriving at the same outcomes. And then you can reverse the value proposition of that to...
Yes, well, I'd love to see that applied, in this field.
Just to put this on the table, the sources of funding that most media organizations are using now would be some combination or balance of subscriptions, advertising, sponsors, which is kind of like advertising, but it's content. A little different. Yeah, the people are doing that too. Distribution for pay. Some people will actually distribute press releases. And then events, that's a big one. People try to monetize through events. So I don't know, just to put that out there, that to your point, that is, people are constantly trying to figure out how to make it work.
But it can come down to something as simple as matchmaking. That's what targeted advertising is trying to do. But think about like any passion-driven industry that is like, outdoor sports equipment or something, that like the consumers of that stuff are thrilled to know that it exists. To do that matchmaking well, you can invert an attention economy by getting people what they want, by expediting that process of finding and getting what they want and getting value out of that. That's a great value proposition that is underexplored, but people are working on it.
Well, there's an assumption that people want news. Maybe they don't. Like, do you want to hear about all the bad things in the world today for 10 minutes on your drive into work? What is news to you?
Transparency of maybe like